Hello and warm welcome, Shivram, to Designers Unleashed. Designers Unleashed is about various talk shows with designers, design students, and design faculties. So, the entire idea of starting up Designers Unleashed was to create a platform wherein students can interact. Now, we would like to know something about you. Like, how did you get this idea about taking industrial design as your career option?
Okay, so frankly speaking, I didn't know design itself as a career option existed
Okay.
till I finished my 12th board exams. After I had initially gone for like the whole, engineering, B.Tech, JEE, that was my initial idea. But after finishing my board exams, a friend of mine actually told me that design exists. So why don't you just go give it a try it out? So I went ahead, tried out UC, and with barely a week of preparation, I tried it out, and I got rank 400. And I was like, holy shit, this is like when compared to BTech and all that stuff where I had to study this much. When I'm getting this much of a rank with like barely 1 week, I knew that this was something that I could get a grasp of easily. So I decided to go into design as a field. And then later on with research, I found out industrial design being much more of a interesting field to me, at least personally, than communication. So I went with industrial design.
Okay. So which college are you in currently?
I'm in DJ Academy of Design. It's in Coimbatore, Tamil Nadu. So,
Okay, that's great. How did you get into this college? Like, what was the process?
well, the college had initially we had to submit a portfolio of work that we've done. But since of course we were all just college pass outs, at least me personally, I didn't have any design related to work. Although I did start learning the 3D software Blender when I was in 10th grade. So I just compiled a lot of my work in that, did a couple of sketches, compiled it all together, and I submitted my portfolio. After we submitted the portfolio, we had an interview in the college. So after the interview, we were selected for the body,
Oh,
which means that everyone has to get to know each other.
right, right. Okay. So, what was your experience in terms of was your family very open, you joining a design program and not BTech or engineering, or you had to struggle through that passage? How was it?
So I have to say I got lucky with parents who understood and understood me and wanted to help me out. My father was very understanding, honestly, because he was also a person who during his day and age of where he was my age, he took computer science in his school. And that at that point of time when he was in school, it was a very new subject and it wasn't anything that people would suggest taking. So when I did the same thing of taking industrial design, which is again a very new concept coming up in industrial in India at the very least. He was very supportive.
Right. Okay. So, after getting into design college, what do you feel? Like, do you feel that if I would have learned XYZ things, it would have been better for me? Or what were your experiences? Did you face any kind of hurdles in the college? You had certain expectations. Was it fulfilled, not fulfilled? How was it?
So my batch is infamously known as the COVID batch, where we had foundation entirely at home. And as the name suggests, foundation is the most important year in college. First year is the most important, where you learn all the basic skill sets.
Right.
I my batch we didn't really learn all that till we came to second year. So one thing I would have loved to know, at least even though COVID came up, if I had learned that design as a field existed beforehand, I would have brushed up on some skills like sketching or modeling or any other skills which would I believe could have helped me a bit more. So
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Any piece of advice you would like to give upcoming batch? They should learn something that will be helpful for them. May it be sketching skills or specific softwares related to industrial design or anything else.
Yeah, so the thing is, at least in industrial design, I'm talking purely industrial design because that's what I know the most. Uh, Sketching, re-rendering, those are all basic skill sets which you are supposed to have, which you require to illustrate your ideas. For example, like if as a designer, you would have, say, a multitude of ideas, but sketching is the most easiest form of communicating the ideas from one person to another. So sketching is an absolute must, no questions asked.
Okay.
But at the same time, I would feel like even if one doesn't completely understand, or completely is good at sketching, he or she should learn other softwares which can make up for it, like 3D modeling or research. Knowing how to properly conduct research is also a very big milestone of sorts in uh, learning design as such.
Okay.
So,
And any specific 3D softwares you would recommend?
I mean, so I am very good with Blender, but at the same time, Blender is not essentially industry grade software. So industry grade softwares include Fusion 360, SolidWorks, Rhino, and for rendering Keyshock. But the thing is, these softwares are extremely costly. They're not really easy to attain, like with Indian currencies, to put it lightly. But if you join a good college with a college ID, you can get multiple discounts and you can get it for free with the college ID. So you try to learn them if you can, but once the college starts, make sure to get the college ID and start learning them as soon as possible.
Okay. So, like you told in UC, you got 400 ranking. So, are you still disappointed that you did get into IIT, or how is it?
Well, I'm not disappointed as of such, because I mean it's a good thing, because I know for a fact that if I went for BTech or engineering, I would not have had the experiences, I would not have had the learning outcome I had here, or the character growth itself I have had here. I'm not disappointed. It was just a wake up call for me, like, okay, now I know what to do with my life as of such. So
Right. Great. Okay. So, as a designer, is there any particular specific designer that you appreciate or follow the most?
yeah, there's this Japanese designer. He's a pretty old, like he died recently. His name was Kenji Ikuana. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing, but he's one I recently learned about. So this man, he's about more than his design. I liked his mindset entirely. His father and his sister died in the Hiroshima Nagasaki nuclear bomb. And that man came up and went to become one of the greatest Japanese designers of all time. He, in fact, designed this Kikuman soy bottle, soy sauce bottle, which perfectly, the form of it is like very Japanese and like illustrates how Japanese design could be, or is, in fact.
So, are you talking about Paul Kenji?
What?
Are you talking about Paul Kenji?
Not Paul Kenji. His name was Kenji Ikuan, Ekuan.
Ekuan.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So, can you tell something about your experience with Metaverse? Like you've been working on Metaverse, NFTs, blockchains. So,
Yeah.
what's your overall call on it?
So so the thing is, when you don't get into NID or IIT and you get into another college, one thing that my seniors have told me is that what makes you stand out from the people who have gotten into those prestigious universities, or the work that you do, the internships that you do, the extra work that you put in. Because when you are applying for a job or an internship, most companies, before they look at your experience or your portfolio, at least it's what I've been told, they look at the college that you studied. So if it's an NID or something, they obviously prefer that person the most. So since I was in DJ, I had to put in my a bit more work in internships and everything. I was lucky enough to get an internship in a tech company called Latent View Analytics, where I had to work on Metaverse and Metaverse research as such. I can't really share the details of it entirely, but one thing I learned on Metaverse, my stand on the Metaverse as such, is that it's an really amazing tool to for design. It's not like something that's going to that we can completely ignore because of the way that it's taking shape and the way that it's influencing the world. But some ways that, for example, if you would say that metaverse could affect or like help a person, is like number one, it could help in collaborative design. That is like say one person's there in India and another person's there all the way in America. You can work together in a much more comfortable fashion rather than Google Meets or Zoom. You can be almost physically in the same place, working together on processes and whatnot. And then obviously it creates an immersive experience for the user, which is again, the user is the focal point of all design. It's the user is who you design for. So a more immersive experience for a user is all the more better, right? And then of course it's also good for accessible design, like creating accessibility for like people who cannot move around much, rather than moving across uh, continents to see a particular design of an object, it'll be right there in your laptop where you can experience it. So I mean, it's essentially just a mind-blowing tool that people have to start utilizing.
Okay. So, how do you think it'll impact the current design industry or human life, and to what extent?
So design industry, I mean, so it'll be easier. Well, some ideas I can think of on the top of my head is like it'll be easier for digital asset management. Like, uh, for example, you create like some 3D models, or you can like easily store them. You can easily take them out, and other people can use them, with like much less middleman effort put inside. And then, of course, you can also create contracts, smart contracts like patents or royalties. Those are also very like increasing. And then with the concept of NFTs, you can also make collectible designs. Of course, these are all more like not user centered entirely, but rather how it can affect the design world. But again, with metaverse and NFTs, there are also a couple of negative impacts. For example, the sustainability of this entire thing is could has to be entirely improved on, because the metaverse, uh, most of it uh, is based off the Ethereum blockchain, which is like highly not really sustainable to the world that we live in. So yeah.
Okay. So, if a particular student wants to get into metaverse or blockchains, what are your recommendation? What that particular student should go through?
Well, for a student as an industrial design student, like
Industrial design or any other design? Do you have any
uh,
take on it?
I mean, see, I got into it through an internship I had done. So if you and because of the new way that it's progressing, there are lots of internship opportunities in that same field. So if possible, the student, if he wants to get into that kind of field or know more about it, then he or she should just work more, get into an internship which teaches them stuff. Because only in internship you'll be able to get that real world experience.
Oh,
So
but
it's
any
very
skill
good.
sets do you think that particular student will need before joining the internship?
Most of them, most at least the ones that I attended, require 3D modeling as a must, and then research capabilities as mentioned before.
Sorry,
But me,
please got cut.
research capabilities.
Right,
But
right.
for me, 3D modeling was the one that helped me get those certificates.
Okay, okay, great. Asha, so according to your experience, like you're repetitively talking about 3D modeling, sketching, and research skills, what are the other skills that are required as an industrial design student that you feel?
So these skills are what build up on other skills. Like so, we have there's the design process as of such, right? So, one of the main, I'm just giving an example here, but one of the main parts of the design process is ideation, which can be considered to be a skill of its own. Ideation not just involves the solution that you give to a product, but rather the form of it, the aesthetic appeal of it, all that, and how, of course, how the user will be interacting with it, the user interaction.
Right.
So these skill sets, again, sketching, 3D modeling are all essential software skills or hard skills which to be put on. But obviously, the designer should learn soft skills as well, like how to communicate, how to the teamwork. Because another thing that is very important is teamwork, and completely went over my head. But teamwork is so the thing is in my college when you come up with group projects, you don't essentially choose our team. You rather take a random team generator, which is really much better because uh, in the field you don't know who you're working with. You don't know what kind of people you will have to work with, what are their likes and dislikes, what they talk of you or whatever. So when you have to learn how to manage with other people, that soft skills are really necessary to develop.
Okay, that's a great point. A lot of students do miss it. Teamwork. Can you walk us through a recent project that you're working on that incorporated both design or technology or any other project wherein there were problem solving skills in the process?
So recent, we had a course called Technically Complex Project. That was our project code for this semester. This is one of the more like courses where I had to learn more on engineering wise rather than just the design wise aspect of it. In this course, I had to, my brief for this course was essentially just to make a poster for the Indian audience. So, well, in the Indian household, you don't normally see people using toasters very often, very much, because of like the way that the bread comes out, or the way the Indian household like it. One insight I got from that was that it was because of how in Indian households at least, most of the bread that we have are like very soft bread, right? It's not essentially hard bread. And when you take toast out of a toaster, it's almost always hard. Whereas in an Indian households, they like toast to be more like when toasted in a tawa, you know? That's how they like to toast bread. So I had to redesign a toaster to give out the same output of toasting on a tawa. So for that, I have to like understand the internals of the toaster, make an explore review sketch. You know, we redesigned the toaster as such to help the Indian audience like and use it on a greater stage.
Okay. Okay. So, do you have any work that you can share on the screen and or portfolio that you can show to our students?
Uh, yeah, I can. Give me a second.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So if there is my Behance, where Behance is like a website where designers will put up their work, and it's like a platform to show your work. People put up their portfolios like I have, or just separate projects as such. So this is my portfolio. So one for last semester, I had a course for sustainable design where I and a friend of mine with group project. So I and a friend of mine had to redesign uh, table razors. So table razor is often almost known as the new plastic straws because of how much they contribute to sus- how less they contribute to sustainability. So we did some initial research on what is sustainability, the aspects of sustainability, is like social, ecological, economical. Because when people normally talk about sustainability, they talk on the ecological aspect of it, how it affects the environment. But when you have to also consider the social aspect, like what do other people think of, what does the Indian audience think of such particular product, or the economical sustainability, like how the price range of the product and if the Indian audience would buy it. So all these aspects they're taking consideration, and we had some research on how razors were affecting India, how razors were affecting the world, and how we can make it better. So we listed on some problem statements, figured out the answers, and went ahead with just research or secondary research. Secondary research basically when you sit and Google up, you find out whatever you can on the internet. So I did a bit of market research, and other stuff which already exists to solve this problem that we're facing. So there's generally just three types of razors, three types of sustainable razors. If I would say there's environmentally sustainable, where like uh, there's this company called the Hani Weight Razor. So the Hani Weight Razor was made by this studio called the Prime Studio based in New York. The it's really good razor. It's like it's completely made out of metal, and metal, so people won't necessarily have to rebuy it and they use it. You don't have to throw it away. They just can keep it with them. And but the thing is extremely costly, so the Indian audience wouldn't buy it.
Right.
So we just had to like list it down, figure out where we can improve, what we can improve. So and then we did a task analysis where we understood what is the entire uh, again like the tasks that a person follows for shaving their face. And yeah, this all of this research. And then we started doing ideation sketches that I mentioned before. Sketches are like the best way you can show an idea, conceptualize an idea. So we did a couple of ideation sketches, and this was our solution. So solution was using a bamboo razor where we used all of it are sustainable materials, and we so it's like completely sustainable to the environment, like economic sustainability, because bamboo and areca leaf and stainless steel are what we're using. And bamboo again, it's like the it's quickest growing crop, so it's like very sustainable. Areca leaf is like very you get this huge, I say like half the size of a banana leaf for like 2 rupees, and you only use a little bit of it. So you can it's again economically sustainable, and stainless steel blades are the only thing that you replace in this entire setup that we have. Uh, so yeah, and then we need a prototype, see if it works, which we did say about the issues with, and it worked perfectly. The only, of course, there are to be some improvements to this particular design. For example, that blade is facing at a 90-degree edge, which is how old blades used to be. But right now, you would see that razors don't have the 90-degree edge right now. They have like more of a slanted down for more safety purposes. So there are some improvements.
The face structure.
Yeah, so there could be some improvements made in the design, but this is one of the projects that I've done. Again, 3D rendering entirely is quite important. And even if you can make a prototype, 3D rendering could show the idea of one of more physical aspect.
Right.
So yeah, and then we had uh, yeah, this is another group project I have done called for a digital merchandising project. This is not entirely industrial design, it's more of a combined course between industrial design and communication design. Uh, so my group was 7 member group. We had to create a visual merchandising space for the genre of books of fantasy fiction. So we made islands, figured out the lighting, all that stuff, and we made this space of such entirely from newspapers, more from like it was to illustrate the space that uh, a library could have to promote.
Your goals were indeed interesting, and I hope a lot of students will get inspiration from your works. So, how do you see the role of industrial designers evolving in future? Like, will it change? How drastic changes will come, or it's just the same? What do you think?
Well, there are some aspects that has to be considered when, I mean, again, this is all from my learning, and I don't want to set anything in stone because again, I'm just a student. I don't really, even I can only have an idea on how the things will happen. I'm not an expert in the subject, but I'd say design as such would um, improve on this basics of sustainability, because that's one thing that our planet entirely needs is sustainability and keeping the planet intact.
Right.
So that's one thing that design as such will evolve to have. Another thing is the integration of technology. So right now we have Spotify, right? Spotify. We have almost all the songs in the world in one app. Whereas before we had to have MP3, Philips, and I have a small Philips MP3 where you had to go download songs and then put it in.
Right.
So when new technology is blooming, then our designs have to be integrated of that for technology while still centering around the user and how the user would accept it, how the user would go ahead with using that particular piece of technology. Other than that, we would also have to do collaborative design, as mentioned before, like instead of just us working on what we like. Obviously, design revolves around the user, and we have to get consideration from designers or in other places all over the world where we can work together and get more insights from other schools of thought. And that's these are some ways I feel as design would evolve and is evolving right now.
Okay. Last question for you, Shubramani. Uh, do you think there is any myth that is supposed to be broken that a student has while joining a design college?
Uh, Next, okay. I'd say one thing that all I had initially was that design is an art of sorts. But I mean, this is entirely from my experience. I didn't know much about design when I joined it, but I just felt like design was like a art with a function, right? But it's rather much more deeper than that, much more essential than that, right? It's much more than that, frankly speaking. So when design as such is not entirely an art, but rather the way that a function is shown to the user. A function is the user uses or the user accepts a function in a product. So these are like again, these are all just stuff that a person would learn once they come to a different college, once they're more exposed to an environment, once they're more exposed to different schools of thought inside the design college itself.
Okay. It was very interesting indeed, Shivram, getting you on board and having such an insightful conversation. Thank you very much for your time. All the best and hope all the students get benefited by this conversation.
Thank you very much.